Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our second seminar. So I am Ezra. I'm the chair of the Congregational Life Team. We have worked diligently over the past 7 or 8 months. We have a great new draft of the behavioral covenant based on the feedback that we've gotten over the last several months. So we're going to share that with you in a few minutes, and then we're going to break out into a couple small groups and talk about implementation, moving forward, and really thinking about how we're going to incorporate these values and behaviors into our community. So I'm going to invite Shelby up to share a little bit of information from the screen, and then we'll take it from there.
So it's a little bit labor intensive. So there's two things you got to have to do this. First is you're going to need a pen and some note cards. So I'm going to start over here with Art. If you'll take supplies and pass them. The other thing you got to have is some puffed peppermints. And I'm going to start with Holden because we can't do this. Can't do this without him. And then I'll start with Elizabeth to pass these around. So let's see what we got here. So we want to welcome you to our seminar. This is the last seminar that we will be doing prior to the congregational vote in a week or two. Welcome. We are the members of the UCG Congregational Life Team. Ezra, Jennifer, Jane, Shelby, Ann, Steffi, Ron, Beth, and Wendy are the members of our team. We've been working together for several months on this. The purpose of our seminar this morning is to present the final draft of our behavioral covenant and generate ideas about how we want to, as a congregation, effectively integrate it into congregational life. We're going to have the icebreaker in just a minute, and it'll be fun. So in 2024, the Pathfinder subcommittee of the CMRB recommended the creation of a church-wide behavioral covenant. The recommendation was approved by the congregation at the fall meeting, and then the Congregational Life Team was tasked with two duties: to facilitate opportunities for connection and fellowship in our church community, and also to coordinate a behavioral covenant for our congregation. Yes or no?
Yeah, let me start with you.
Sure. Just to recap, in case this is your first seminar or meeting with us. So just what is a behavioral covenant? So it's a covenant that can be an effective way to establish some ground rules to ensure right relations and to keep a steady course through times of change and problems and chaos. Also, it helps whenever there are diverse opinions and people are, passionate about issues and just anything that can happen basically within our church family. A behavioral covenant is a written document that's developed by church members and leaders, agreed to and owned by its creators, and practiced regularly as a spiritual discipline. So as members of our church, we seek to covenant, that is to promise one another how we will be in community with one another moving forward. This is going to be kind of our adopted philosophy. Our promises are vows made within the intention of upholding them. But unlike a legal ruling where we often seek compensation for a breached contract, what we seek as our desired outcome with the covenant could be described as understanding and recommitment. When something happens, we want to know the following: what went wrong, what are we having trouble with, and how do we try again? Clicker. Probably you do. Yeah, sure.
All right, I'm going to click back. So now we're going to do just a fun little chit chat exercise because we love to chit chat here at UCG. So we're going to break into a few small groups. But before we do that, if you are entirely unfamiliar with the behavioral covenant, you haven't seen the draft that we've shared in the past, or you haven't been to the other seminar, and you feel like you need to know more about what a behavioral covenant is, raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, all right. Okay, all right, excellent. So those folks who need who need a little bit of introduction to behavioral covenants, can you raise your hand again? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, excellent. So yeah, you want to break those folks out into a group, um, and yes, in a moment, and then okay, and then everybody who didn't put your hand up just now, put your hand up. All right, 1, 2. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hello. No problem. Okay. All right. So sorry. Hands up again. Okay. I just got to count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. If you don't need an introduction to the behavioral covenant, hold your hands up. I just got to count. All right. One, two, not you, Jennifer. Not you. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right. So if you were in that first group, people who need to have a little bit more understanding about the behavioral covenant, you're going to go with Jane, back that away. And if you're capable of it, you can bring your own chair. Otherwise, I will bring a chair for you in a second. So it's like, yep. And everybody else can split themselves into roughly even groups. We'll have one on this side of the room and one on this side of the room. Yep, it's a real hokey pokey situation. All right. And then for Holden, how many people do we have on Zoom? Two people on Zoom. All right. So I'm going to come over here and chat with them for a minute. So as you convene your circles, there should be at least one member of the congregational life team in your circle, if not two or three. So we're going to start things out just real easy and simple. The members of my committee have some fun icebreaker questions, and this is just an opportunity to practice connection, lightheartedness, maybe getting to know someone a little bit more that you didn't know previously. So your circle facilitator will share an icebreaker question and give everybody a chance to answer that. And I'm going to come over here and chat with the folks on Zoom. So we'll take about 10 minutes just for fun and lighthearted chit chat, and then we'll move into the business at hand. Well, three of us can Thank you. All right. So Jillian and Jeff.
So we can't hide.
Should I be able to hear them?
Oh, the volume's off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we want to do a little icebreaker. There are some questions.
Sorry, where's the? Okay, I'll just. All right.
Isabel. Okay, so that. Hold on a second.
Oh, sure. We'll read it all as a big group so the people on Zoom can hear. All right. So we're going to take a few minutes now. We're going to shift directions. We're going to read over the draft of the behavioral covenant. I'm going to click through and get that slide up. All right. And maybe the members of my committee want to take turns reading the items nice and loud. I'll pass the microphone around, get my steps in. Yes. All right. In this covenant, we draw inspiration from our church compact to follow, even imperfectly, the way of Jesus in personal involvement with each other by promising to
treat each other with love, kindness, and compassion.
Be supportive, welcoming, and inclusive.
Jane, you want to read?
Listen to the words, ideas, and feedback of others attentively and with a curious mind.
Discuss, debate, and disagree in an open and respectful manner.
Speak only from our own experience, using I statements whenever possible.
Express our feelings honestly and respond to one another with patience and a desire to understand, recognizing that others may be experiencing difficulties that are unknown to anyone else.
When conflict happens, remember to pause if triggered, assume the best intentions of each other, invite more information, respond with respect, and refrain from negative judgment.
Take personal responsibility for our actions and seek repair and reconciliation when we harm others. So we've got some time now to again discuss in our small groups, and I will chat with the folks on Zoom. The members of our committee have some discussion questions for you. So we'll spend some time talking in our small groups, and then we'll come back to the group as a whole at the end for a few minutes. Hey, friends, let's wrap up our final thoughts in the small groups.
Board share, et cetera. Let's adopt some of these things. I think that you could take out some of these things from the covenant and expand on them. In that other document that I think. Yeah, they call it land forest training. Specific idea of how people should actually implement this. Board meeting, et cetera. Congregation. That you really can't put in.
Reconciliation is how you need to get people on the brief that pulls that document.
All right, everybody, let's bring our attention back to the larger group. And now we've got about 15 minutes for any questions or comments that anyone would like to share. Also, Jane very helpfully reminded me there are some frequently asked questions on the back of the behavioral covenant draft. Questions we've already gotten, questions we've anticipated getting. So there is some additional information that might be useful to you on there. And now the floor is open for questions and comments. Eric.
So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. There was a lot of discussion in our group about the idea of being direct. So, when we were looking at the covenant, I know you're not really in revision mode, and I get that. So maybe this would be part of the implementation piece, but this idea of, okay, if there is conflict, then how are we encouraging each other to be direct? Ezra, if I have a conflict with you, I'm not talking to Jennifer. I'm going direct to you. And is that written down anywhere? Are we encouraging people to do that? So that was just something that we spent a lot of time on.
I keep forgetting what this thing is called, but there is a document in policies and procedures that is sort of a way to deal with conflict. And one of them is to go to the person directly. So that's a document worth, I think, us revisiting. I can't remember what it's called. Does anyone remember?
Megan's going to pull it up. Okay, we're going to go on while Megan does that, not put her on the spot.
Well, I'm gonna just keep going here. The other thing that we talked about was the implementation piece, and a couple ideas that came out were obviously talking about it in our groups and committees as a practice. That's been mentioned a couple times. Another one was, if people don't read the newsletter, and there are some folks that don't read the newsletter. I'm one of them. I just don't read it on a regular basis. Jane gives me the cliff notes and I move forward. But I do like to get to services early. And I really enjoyed when we were doing the StoryCorps thing. You know, you would see something before services started. So if we could, what I would enjoy seeing is maybe just one of the bullet points on Sunday mornings. Not like it would have to be up there for hours, but, you know, maybe from like 9:40 to 9:50, you know, for 10 minutes, it would be up there where I could just read it and kind of contemplate it on a regular basis. That would be helpful. Keeping it fresh, you know, for me.
So to edify that Beth couldn't have remembered this at all, it's United Church of Gainesville, a roadmap to help members address their concerns about the church. The name of the document, it's in the policies and procedures. Roadmap to help members concerns of, yeah, it's a CMRB document.
All right. Well, and Jane, I know, had the group of people who were less familiar. So, Jane, do you or anyone from your group want to share a little bit about what you discussed?
Yes, and I think there were 7 of us, so please chime in. The group read the covenant the way that we did with a lot of our meetings. We used the same process in terms of them reading the covenant and then doing compassionate listening while everyone shared what spoke to them about the covenant. We didn't go into the implementation area, although 2 people had questions about how are we going to implement this. So what spoke to our group was curious mind, the word open, speak only from our experience using I statements, recognizing that others may be experiencing difficulties that are unknown to anyone else. And 2 of the members actually provided some examples of, not from UCG, but from situations they had where that was a really helpful thing. Remember to pause if triggered. And the idea there was remember to pause if you or others are triggered to create space. Several people, that second to last bullet got a lot of traction. Assume the best intentions in each other, invite more information. That may be hard for some persons who may be uncomfortable with tension or conflict. Seek repair and reconciliation. Beware of negative, gossip, that word gossip. Beware of negative, contagious discussions. And anything else that I didn't capture from our group? Okay. And then I just wanted to say one thing. I've been on a lot of different committees over the years, and one idea that I have for implementation was that we kind of ask the chair committees to use some of these covenants as a spiritual focus. In the groups that I've been in, the spiritual focus is often a poem or really nice stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's very nice stuff, but I'm just wondering if it would have more depth if there was intentionality for a year or so, and then some quarterly refreshers about either one of the items, and then people can just for 5 minutes discuss how that relates to themselves or whatever. We have lots of groups, and I love spiritual foci. So.
How about Jennifer's group? Are there any highlights from your discussion you'd like to share?
I'm going to let Beth, who took some excellent notes, be the one to kind of conceptualize.
Beth is an excellent note taker.
Only I can read my handwriting. So we talked about lots of good implementation ideas, reminders, or have it be part of sermons, maybe not the whole sermon, but sort of bring it up in the sermons. Talk about it in new member orientation. Talk about it have it as part of the agenda for congregational meetings, maybe just shown at the beginning, but also if things, if people are speaking in a way that is not kind, or, that we can remind each other that this is the covenant. Let's see. Just like Eric was suggesting, putting it on the screen in the, as part of the announcements, spiritual focus. And then we also talked about having a more fleshed out version for leaders to sort of either boards and committees or different groups, to kind of give them a sense of how they can handle conflict if it arises in their own group, which I thought would be really helpful. That's most of what we talked about. There was the feeling that it was too long, which we talked about. And anyway, that's what we.
So I think Eric summarized pretty well what went on in our group, because we did spend a fair bit of time talking about not gossiping, and actually not gossiping was in earlier versions of this, and we got quite a lot of feedback to take gossip out, or at least the term gossip. And there was some sense in our group as well that it's maybe a little too long. So if we can be more concise, that might be useful. And it might make a nice worship theme. We probably want to group things together so that there's not 8 different Sundays where someone has to preach on this, but and some of the same ideas for implementation that everybody else has brought up.
Just to address that one thing about it being too long, one of the things that we reminded ourselves of in our group is that it is a dynamic, living document, and is going to be part of the policies and procedures, not the bylaws. And so therefore, we will revisit it every 2 years to possibly rewrite it. So there is a chance of shortening it as we put it into use and see how it works.
Thanks for that reminder, Jennifer.
Yes, so we went to approximately 20 different boards, committees, meetings, lunch meetings, staff meetings. I think I was facilitating this. This was my 5th. And for every time I heard it needs to be shorter, I heard someone say, please don't take that one out. Please. So I got shorter versions that deleted a couple. The group, our Congregational Life group, looked at those and said, well, that one really is distinct. And we went back to the chalk talk. I don't know if we mentioned that. So in November, we did a chalk talk, and Ron and someone else, Anne, typed up, it was pages of ideas around how do we, it was the trigger question was, how do we relate to one another according to our compact in the way of the model of Jesus' behavior. And so we themed all those, we looked at all those, it's the ideas floated to the top, and all of those ideas of those 8 things are representing the most common ideas from the congregation. And I think we've gotten, I could easily say 250 to 300 unique sets of input, of data points from people. So.
Thank you. And yes, and I would also just like to highlight that Jane did so much data science for us and really combing through that data. And it has been, I'm speaking for myself, but I think the rest of my committee as well, that it's been a privilege and an honor to get to do this process and hear from so many people and hear just how much everyone loves this church and wants it to be the best possible setting for us to work and play and learn together. So on that note, we do have a few more minutes if there's any other questions or comments. Yes.
Okay, not my jam. So I asked this in the group and maybe we should all reflect on it together. Clearly, we would be agreeing that going forward, this is how we want to behave, however we decide. Is there any attempt to retrofit any of these principles on the giant conflict problem issue we've sort of left lying there somewhere? Is like, what's the framing of it? Is the framing, this is for now and the future, or is it, are we encouraging people that had serious conflicts with people before to now go back and do that work together? Or what's the framing in terms of the temporal?
Big question, Robin. Thank you. I love a big question. So I will respond first cheekily and then seriously. Some of that is above my pay grade. In terms of sort of going back and, conflict mediation from the past. The idea with the behavioral covenant is we've created something that moving forward that we're buying into and using together. And I think it would certainly be appropriate if old conflicts are returning, that looking at and reflecting on the behavioral covenant could be a very helpful piece of, people moving forward.
Another chance.
It's never too late. I think everyone's left us on Zoom by now. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for coming. I'll stick around for a few minutes if anyone has any other questions or comments who just wants to have a chit chat. And the most important thing that you can do moving forward is please come to the congregational meeting in 2 weeks, because we will be asking for a vote of support from the congregation to send it on to church council to approve and place in the policies and procedures. And continue to reflect on. All right, Art wants me back on the. And continue to reflect on the themes and values contained therein. So fantastic. Have a beautiful Sunday, everyone.